Hello, I'm Joseph Lennox. I'm a Senior Strategy Advisor at HMRC and I completed my Policy Level 4 Apprenticeship Scheme in 2024. Now spending most of my time trying to push further education and apprenticeships for all. The reason I chose an apprenticeship, and I think it really applies to the individual, right? So for me, I knew that academic learning wasn't my best way of getting the most out of education. I needed to apply that learning somehow, so I really wanted to find an opportunity to flex that academic learning with the opportunity to then apply that to real life scenarios. So that's what I really wanted to do. And I just went out to persevere and get that. Don't get me wrong, I had uni offers as my fallback, but I really didn't want to go that traditional uni route. And what would I say to anyone thinking about it? Yeah, I always tell people just go for it, because the most people can do is say no. And you will learn from that process how to do a good application. If you get feedback, which I tell people they need to give feedback because it's crucial, you'll be able to help that apprentice apply for that next apply for that next role around. So yeah, go for it, because I think now you have apprenticeships in pretty much everything. When I was shocked to hear that you could be an apprentice as a paramedic, you could be a lawyer now, you can study to be a solicitor, through an apprenticeship scheme. So look at what opportunities it offers, because sometimes you can get direct access to the industry you're looking for. So that'd be my advice. One thing from the awards, I always said I don't want this to be a piece of glass that sits on a shelf. I wanted to use the platform I was given to bring about more change. So for me, it's really looking at where do we push equality, diversity and inclusion, where do we ensure that we are harnessing young talent and giving them the opportunity for careers. So I want to make use of that platform in terms of my careers and my opportunities, and using what I've done to generate opportunities for others. That's massive. And then personally, I guess it's sometimes reflected on what you've done so far. So I have these awards on my mantelpiece in my living room, and sometimes I just look at them and reflect, and I go, wow, what a night. And it's looking at what I've done personally and appreciating that. So yeah, I think sometimes it's that opportunity to go, right, this is what you've done in your career, and look how it's affected your life personally, and it's combining both those worlds. So yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity, if I'm honest, yeah. Massively changing world 2024, I think it's the most elections in the world on record. So it's quite impressive that there's a lot of elections going on, a lot of change going on. But I also see it as an opportunity to inject some fresh ideas into what's going on. For me, what do I want to see? I want to see technology paired with education. That's been a massive one for me always, because I think one of the sectors that I think really gets left behind sometimes is education. It's still very traditional when you go to school. Sometimes you're still listening to a teacher talk at you, and not everyone learns that way. That's what I've learned. So I really want to see technology being harnessed, and I'm going to reflect on the lovely conference I'm at. Just seeing that around me is quite good now, hearing about AI being used in lessons, hearing about these journeys being absolutely shaped around the learner is absolutely perfect, because it means what we're doing is not using a broad brush to just go like, let's scoop up as much people as we can, but how do we make sure that one, they have a great journey, not just we get as much money out of it, but how do they have a good journey that they get a lot of learning and development out of? But also it's then saying, right, what more can we do to make sure that this journey continues for everyone? We make sure everyone has that journey. So yeah, it's harnessing technology, and I think looking at it with a fresh sort of open mind, I think is what I'm looking forward to this year. And yeah, I think looking at on the back of the elections, I think that it's that moment for change, isn't it? A lot of people now are not happy with what's been going on for years, and they're looking at, how do we bring about more change? And for me, I'm thinking, right, potential change in government might not change. Who knows? There could be a change of ministers, there could be a reshuffle. There will be some form of change, and it's how can we use our position, and more importantly my position as well, off the back of the awards to influence as much change as possible. Speaking to a range of different people, I've picked up these weird and wonderful things specific to people's journey. And I think that's why I say to apprentices, whenever you've been on a journey, whether that's good or bad, share it. Even if you've dropped out, tell us why you've dropped out. Tell the organisation, tell the provider, tell your employer what went wrong. Because what you learn from these people is that some of them are very specific, some of them aren't that big. And if there was just a little bit more attention to detail, that journey would have been a lot easier. So from my experience, I know I went into HMRC, I met people who were, on the same scheme as me, but weren't in the right job to give them policy. So they spent more of their time trying to figure out, how do I get into the right right role so I can actually do this apprenticeship scheme. I don't think that should be the apprentice's responsibility to find themselves a job in such a large organisation. Age is still a barrier. I spoke to an older apprentice, and that's one thing I've learned at HMRC, that the idea that apprenticeships are for young people, not at all. I saw people who were in HMRC for 20, 30 years doing schemes, and you ask them why, and they're doing it to get more skills, change career, and I love that. So that's a massive one. But speaking to the older apprentices on the scheme, they say it's actually hard to understand the technology sometimes. It feels like it's actually targeted towards a young person. They just assume that you'll know how to use Excel, PowerPoint, Word. And for me, I thought that's absolutely shocking, because I grew up with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and I just thought it was normal. But not everyone has that same experience, so that's a huge one as well. And I think it's support. I always push for support. Not everyone has the support from the learning provider to provide that top class learning, absolute support for each development and module. I think that's massively important too. I think it's also just a lack of opportunities sometimes provided by employers. So I think there needs to be more communication, and I think that's one thing I'm picking up at this conference. It's communication between the apprentice, the employer, and the learning provider. I think they are the most important things. But yeah, I think there needs to be a lot more done there to make sure that the journey's not difficult for everyone. And I think that will slowly bring down those dropout rates when people start paying more attention to those specific journeys. So I think a couple things there. For the apprentice, I would definitely say if they want to really get the most out of it is share their journey, because it means that it helps that next person on the journey. So tell the learning provider and the employer what was good, what went wrong, what could be done better, because it allows them to really look back on that. For the provider, I would definitely say you need to listen to the apprentice more. I think sometimes the provider tries to do what's best for the apprentice, and I think it's really simple. Just ask the apprentice sometimes, how far are you in your journey? Does this match up? Do the modules match up with what you're learning? Because sometimes even I was way ahead of the scheme because I was just doing so much in the day job, but I didn't have that matching. So sometimes the modules felt pointless because I'd already learned it. So speak to the apprentice, make sure that that journey matches with the day job. And for the employer, I think you also have to be ambitious, not just for your organisation, but for the apprentice you're investing in. I always say apprentices tend to give 110%. I genuinely believe that. I think they give more because there's that almost I've got to prove myself to you guys because you've invested in me. They really go, right, I really want to get everything. I want to really pull in all the opportunities. So I say to the employer, be ambitious, work with the apprentice, but also make sure that there's opportunities along the way. And it may be providing those challenges so they go, okay, I see that they need to hit this on their apprenticeship program. I'm going to make sure that they do this in the day job. So massively, I think communication is what all of them need to work together, but individually they can pick up specific things. Barriers, I think, remain, and there's quite a few different barriers that still remain a problem for unlocking, I guess, the real potential of apprenticeship programs and what they can offer. I think there's a side of employers don't always see the value of apprentices or apprenticeship schemes. They don't see why they should, invest in someone rather than just hiring someone with experience who they can bring and do the job. And it's changing that mentality, not let's just get a quick fix to, we have a job, it's a vacancy, we can hire someone very quickly, but let's think outside the box. If we invest in someone, what will that person give our career? Our organisation. What will they invest in their career, and how much will we get out of it? And I think it's changing the mentality of employers to go, right, let's not just look at the traditional way of recruiting, and let's not use grades as a barrier to shut some of these people out. Bring some people in with no experience. Take that chance, because you might be surprised that if you take that person with no experience, they will they'll give you 110%. They'll make sure that you see that they're working hard. So take the opportunities with apprenticeship schemes, because you can really bring that fresh life into your organisation, I think, and especially with a lot of young people using schemes now, it's a great way to keep talent in the pipeline. And I always say in HMRC, I wouldn't have done so well on my scheme without the people around me. And it was those people who took time out of their day to actually teach me how to do the job. So I think that circle of the more seasoned people in their career who've been there for 10, 20, 30 years can take someone under the wing and teach them just how to do that craft. Massively important. Age is still a barrier, of course, and I'm not gonna lie. This was one that I learned first thing while I started my scheme. When I started my scheme in HMRC, I was the youngest on the scheme, and I was shocked by that, because originally you think apprenticeships, okay, young cohort, that's usually what they're there for. Absolutely blown out of the water for me. So I think the word apprenticeship means something completely different to me now. I think there's the entry levels in there, the real opportunities to create your own talent. But the upskilling element now is what I'm really learning about. Those seasoned employees who have enjoyed their career, but they want to try something different. So they use a scheme to unlock that development and career opportunity at the same time. That's a massive one. And you know what still remains a huge thorn in the side is pay. I'm not going to lie. Young people want to go into a role that they see as attractive. Employers are not investing as much as they could in making those roles attractive. Let's not pay apprentices less because they're an apprentice, because that creates that weird discrimination in the organisation of the apprentices not as there as the full-time colleague or someone that we've not put through a scheme. And that's what I learned in HMRC. It was one of the first schemes, if not the only scheme that I found when I looked at that time, that didn't pay apprentices less money. I got paid the same as anyone on the same grade, and I thought that was actually really rewarding for me, and it made me go, right, I feel valued. So that's a massive one. And then I think the last barrier for me is the cultural barrier. I think we forget that there's a range of different cultures involved in this lovely, lovely country of ours. It's diverse. Most cities are. And I think we need to tailor our approach to some of these cultures. Working on the Young Black Man project and the Young Asian Woman project with HMRC allowed me to hear from young black men in the local area what would be an attractive application for them, and even certain words culturally they don't like. And I thought that's absolutely amazing. So just because you've read the application and seen these words, turn off. And I think that's where we're missing the trick. Also young Asian women, you know, how do we tap into their culture as well? And a lot of them were telling me that they did stay at home and, you know, did do a lot of housework, and I don't have any issue with that. But it was inspiring them to go, right, how do we take our career into our own hands? Using flexibility, using home working, using the ability to come in maybe 1 or 2 days a week, so you can still do what you want to do at home, absolutely fine, but you have the opportunity to unlock your career. So yeah, there's that cultural barrier that we need to sort of breach into, and just ask these different cultures, right, what is one attractive job to you? How would you want to see a workplace? What would you want to see? Would you want to see support for people of different cultures? And present, you know, diverse workplaces. If you have a diverse workplace, shout about it, because it tells people that you're willing to accept a lot of different people from a range of different people, from a range of different countries, and cultures and ethnicities. And it creates that safe place. I think, you know, the opportunity to work in a place where everyone's from somewhere else, you learn, you feel comfortable, because you're all different. I've got a session later today. It's called An Apprenticeship Story. So it's looking at my journey, what an apprenticeship has done for me. And I love coming to these conferences because not everyone works with apprentices in their day job. So it gives them the opportunity to go, wow, this is what we're doing for young people. This is the careers we're unlocking. So it's there to inspire the organisations to keep going and keep pushing, because they're changing lives, even though they may not see it every day. But it's also reflecting on that journey, what went well, what went wrong, and also where I think we could do more in the sector, how we could use recruitment to shape apprenticeship schemes, how we could use support from different education providers, from the learning provider, from employers, down to even parents and guardians. How can they support the individual and make that journey easier? So it's that overview of an apprentice from an apprentice's, it's the overview of an apprenticeship from an apprentice's perspective, but also that real journey of what went wrong and what didn't, because I think we speak about them being great, but they're not easy schemes, apprenticeship schemes, managing that, talking about all of that stuff. So I'm not going to give all the goodies away. Come to the session, you find out.